Composers and artists have been fighting tyranny for centuries, and that really started with Beethoven. I love pairing the Beethoven Leonora or Fidelio, whatever you want to call it, with the Shostakovich Fifth Symphony. Because as a composer, Beethoven was writing to change the status quo. He was writing to improve the lives of people around him, kind of put people on an equal playing field, equalize civil rights, human rights, what he saw as really a system that needed to be overhauled and changed. Beethoven actually wrote 4 overtures to this. This is Leonora Overture number 3. What would follow is the Fidelio Overture that we normally hear that precedes the opera. In the 3rd overture, part of the reason why it kind of fell out of favor and it's not used as much is because it's so musically brilliant. It starts off with this kind of a G descending scale, the dominant in C major. And later on in the opera, you hear this trumpet call, and that's off stage. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. Very exciting trumpet call that precedes a great vivace finale, where the violins have to play very, very fast, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, by themselves, very high. And it makes for an incredibly awesome and exhilarating way to open a performance. We're continuing our tradition this year of featuring a composer of the Americas on every single concert. For this concert, we happen to feature a great composer named Sarah Kirkland Snider. She has a very distinct and unique voice. This season, she's going to be the composer in residence at CU Boulder School of Music. With the Arapahoe Phil, we're doing an amazing piece that I saw with the Detroit Symphony for the first time called Something for the Dark. Sarah Kirkland Snider is this really unique blend of crossover artist. As much as I hate to do this, if you were to kind of categorize her in comparison to voices of other composers, I would say it's kind of Arvo Pärt meets Johannes Brahms meets Björk in a way. I've really fallen in love with the mystery and the childlike innocence of her music.
What is the emotional story here, and how do I immerse myself in that, and how do I be most true to that emotion, and how do I be the most honest and the most candid and put aside all of those well-intentioned shoulds and shouldn'ts that I learned in graduate school. I try to think about mood and emotion more than style or all of that, because I think that all of that stuff separates you from what is really a true emotion that you're feeling. I think all of that can be very emotionally crippling, actually, and can really strangle you creatively.
If you ever want to know what life is like under a dictator, Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony, written around 1937, is quite possibly the most raw, emotional, impactful portrayal of what that feels like. He wrote 2 great operas, one, The Nose, and one much more controversial, The Lady Macbeth of the Mtsensk District. And that was around 1935 when that premiered. This depicts bourgeois life, Soviet life, with a very grim portrayal. And essentially, what Lady Macbeth of the Mtsensk District was doing was saying that life is very unbearable and it's torturous. And so it just so happened that Joseph Stalin was at the premiere in 1936 of the Lady Macbeth, and he walked out at the intermission. So this came out with basically a just horrific review of the opera, basically calling it muddle instead of music. And if Dmitri Shostakovich, or if this composer knows what's good for him, he had better watch out. Basically making this threat which condemned Dmitri Shostakovich to no work and quite possibly death. There was one instance on a Friday where Shostakovich was brought in to be interviewed, And the interviewer, the police chief, basically told him to come back on Monday and bring his packed bags because he wouldn't be seeing his family again. And Shostakovich showed up on Monday, but it turned out that police chief had been executed, so he was saved for the time being. So of course Stalin wanted something that would be triumphant, that would start out of struggle, that would show the Soviet people a path to victory. And Shostakovich had to write the symphony so he could give them this on the surface, but the people understood and could feel the deeper meaning. And for this overall program, I think going back to the Sarah Kirkland Snider title, Something for the Dark, it's in these, these dark times and dark elements and dark examination of, the human soul, that we can find solace, we can find peace through artistic expression in this incredible music.